Lovely. Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Right, now we're getting really good at this, Teams. We're good. Tina has got a set of slides as a presentation that we'll go through, and we can ask questions after each portion. I'm watching the chat room, so if you put hands up or whatever and let me know that you want to, as you can see it as well as I can, you'll see what list, and as each item finishes, I will start at the top of the list for that one, work our way through, and then we'll move on and do the same thing again. Before we start, if you hear a large bell going ding, 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 that is the fire alarm, and there are exits behind me. Hopefully you've got one in each of your rooms. But if you see me disappear, that's because there's a fire alarm. Okay, so that's the nice part about virtual meetings. We can actually not worry about that sort. So good afternoon to any members of the public that are here. I hope you enjoy watching how we try and run meetings from Thetford Town Council. Personally, I think it's brilliant that we can do these virtual meetings because public attendance is greater and you see what is actually happening. So we will start with the agenda, which is 108.20. Any declarations of disposable pecuniary interests?
No, thank you, Mrs. Cannon.
Okay, none. So if you feel anything, as we're going through the different points, if something comes up and you think, hang on a minute, I should have declared an interest in that, just stick it in the chat so that we've got a comment of it, and then we can take it from there and address the situation. You may find it easier to keep all microphones on mute unless you're actually asked to speak. It saves everybody getting interrupted. We will now move on to 109.20. Apologies for absence. Have we received any?
None received.
No.
Would you like me to go through who is present?
Yes.
So for the members of for the public, the councillors of the committee that are present are councillors Graham, Hannam, Crawford, Harvey, Taylor and Brindle. And we also have Councillor Jeremy in the meeting as a non-voting participant.
I'm here.
Oh, Jenny's here. Well done.
I'm sorry, I shall add Councillor Hollis to that list.
I'd like, if we have to vote on anything, I'm just wondering if we can try and vote in a slightly different manner to what we've been doing, because it takes forever to call out all the names. And this is a small group. So, like when we do the minutes, I mean, for this one, the minutes have already been to full council, so everything has been ratified and passed. We just actually need to move the minutes. And I'm wondering what would happen if I say, right, all those in favour of moving the minutes, can you put yes in the chat box? And then I can give you the number of those that voted, rather than everybody saying, this is me, yes, I did. Is that allowable under our terms of reference with virtual meetings?
Be a show of hands, but I don't see why them saying yes to a question is not acceptable. Or they can put their hands up to show their yes vote.
Yeah, is that in that's in accordance with the chat? Yeah. Yeah,
because there is a raise your hand icon which they could use to show as a yes vote, and if it isn't unanimous, we can ask for the no vote.
Yeah. Okay. We'll try that for a change then, shall we? So who is going to monitor the hands going up? Because I can't see all of them. Can you?
I will, yes.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm clicking on where you put hands up and it's telling me that I'm not part of the meeting.
Right. Okay.
So can I just
can you get to the chat? Can you get to the chat room?
I'm in the chat room. It's just where it says hands up. I push that and it tells me I'm not part of the meeting. So
did you want to try that now?
Yeah. Thought we'd just try it for this one and then we'll see where we go from there. So all those in favour of these minutes, put your hands up.
I can't even get into the chat room now.
So physically put your hand up, Jen, if you're in favour. Okay.
So I have. So Councillor Hollis has a hand up. Councillor Brame has his hand up. Councillor Harvey's agreed. Councillor Crawford's agreed.
I can't get this hands up. It's got a red dot on it. Does a red dot mean that I'm not? All I can see, 2 people have raised their hands.
Did you want to write in the chat box then?
That's what I'm saying. I can't write in it.
All right, Mike. Brendel has answered in there as well. I don't know why that's not happening, because on the participant list it's not showing any reason why you shouldn't be able to do that.
It's just saying that I'm not party to this. Let's see if I can find it.
Oh yeah, I'm an attendee now.
That was me,
email
guys.
did you come in on?
I've made her an attendee.
Yeah, I'm an attendee now, but I still can't vote on it.
Oh.
Okay.
So I'll just raise my hands, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the only person I'm missing is Councillor Taylor. Is he still with us? Oh, no, he seems to have left the meeting for whatever reason.
Right.
Okay.
So we will now move on to.
Let me just move through did you want to just go through this is just taking, oh, no, a minute. Oops.
Right, so we'll go to 10120, monthly budget review.
Okay, so I've split this over several pages because it just makes it easier because it's a big document. I know you've had the budget for a couple of days, and you can see the comments that have been put upon it. So our rental income, we have had some of our leases have paid now and are up to date. And obviously this isn't the full, because we're so close to the beginning of the month, they haven't had a chance to fully reconcile the month's figures, so they're as close as we can have them. And so I'd say at the bottom there is a projected adverse variance against the budget, but this is due to the COVID situation. But there's no reason why at the end of the year that all these things should be back up to where they should be, as our tenants can pay their rents. So that's our income.
Do we have any questions on the income slide?
No, thank you.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so on our first page of expenditure, we have the salaries that was discussed in the out meeting because of the special full council, actually, because of the toilets being closed. That's what's enabled us the savings and that to be able to open the toilets with enhanced cleaning. However, that savings will be reduced as we pay for the enhanced cleaning. Pension strain costs, there is no variance. Training, it's minimal. We have been doing more training. Recruitment, we haven't done any recruitment. Our health and safety is likely to increase because of all the new things we're having to put in place for COVID. But again, that's a month by month. We're looking at it. It's still a bit early in the year to work out how much that's going to be over the year. We've had reduced costs in King's House because there's been less use of the King's House over the COVID period. Our rates are lower than budgeted, which is good news. Welfare costs are expected to increase post-COVID. Again, this is because we are having to put extra practices in place to look after our staff and our councillors and the public. So again, we are at the beginning of this still really, and we don't know truly what the cost is that going to be by the end of the year. And so we are reviewing that month by month, and we'll keep you abreast of what's going on. The water and sewage is down because of closures. Electricity is down because of certain closures. And I think that pretty much waste disposal again is also down at the moment. We're expecting that to go up because of the way that we have to treat waste that's potentially COVID. So although at the moment it's lower, that potentially that may increase as well. So is there any questions on the utilities?
I have Brenda with a hand up.
Yeah, it's the toilets. Are we expecting to keep at the regime that we're at for months and months?
To be honest, I don't think anybody knows that, and we're going to be reviewing it regularly to increase and decrease it as necessary.
Okay.
Yes, there is is it a 2 or 3 week look out? I can't remember. It was one or the other.
Well, staff are looking at it sort of weekly, but we're doing a 2-week review with the marketplaces and everything. So, but to be honest, we're looking at it. Ros has been doing her spot checks, so we're reviewing it as regularly as possible, really, because it's an important function.
Any more questions on that slide? No? Can we move on?
So admin costs are down slightly. The cleaning materials are up for obvious reasons. We have got COVID posts put in now. I think it went into finance. Alan did a spreadsheet for NELC when they asked us about potential losses and costs, and that's what's in at 5182. So I think that I can't remember precisely at the moment whether it went through to finance or not, but if it didn't, then I'll make sure it's put on this month's finance. We had an under budgeting on bank charges, changing in accounting how we actually account for our share management fees. That's why that figure is now in there. At the moment, there's a positive variance against budget in expenditure. So what we're paying out more for the COVID situation is being balanced up by our savings within our buildings and staff. So as it says at the bottom, it's unlikely that our budget will be exceeded, but it's possibly too early in the year to confirm this because we don't know what's coming in the next few months. So at the moment, it looks like we're in a positive position, and hopefully that will remain the case.
Okay, we've got Jenny with a hand up.
Thank you. Bad debts written off. Is that? Oh, right. Yeah, I can see it at the side. So thank you very much. I can see it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions on this slide? No. In that case, we'll move on. 10220. This is committee structure.
This was we looked at committee structure, didn't we, last month, and it went to full council, and at full council it was asked that it goes back to the individual committees, and the committees have working groups that look at the structure and give feedback to the personnel committee so that they could bring it back to full council, because it was considered at the meeting that we needed to think carefully about this before going into the restructure. So personnel had their meeting, and as it says on the slide, there are two strands within the committee, staff and day-to-day operation, but they're intrinsically linked, and they didn't see any benefit in splitting them out into two separate committees. There is always room for improvement, and that there could be stand-up focused working groups stood up where appropriate. They didn't want to nominate these working groups in advance, because depending on the situation, we may go to different people within the committee or externally, depending on the experience and expertise that was required. So this is the position that's being put forward for discussion today by the wider committee, to see what people's thoughts are.
Yeah. If I may comment before we start and go to questions, I mean, give people a chance to have a little read and stick their hands up if they've got any comment to make. The bit I liked was that it was, you know, in this committee we have to be flexible. We tend not to have any way of knowing what's going to happen with staff, with sickness. All sorts of things are always on a very flexible nature. So as a committee group, we have to be ready to move with that. And I think this structure allows us to do so, which is for us is the important thing, because you just never know when anything is likely to happen. So I'd like to thank the working group for what they did. And what they came up with, and now I would put it open to anybody to ask questions.
Councillor Canham has a hand up.
Yes, I say Councillor Canham has a hand up. I had a thing come in front of, but I couldn't see who it was. Okay, Councillor Canham.
Yeah, just to say that really we're not a structure that actually needs working groups to go off and do things. You know, we just, as you rightly said, we're just there, and we might have to do something on the hop, so you get the right person to do them roles. So I think that's why we went along with this, because we don't, we don't have to segregate for anything. Everything gets spoken about at personnel, but if we do need to do something, we'd be there ready and waiting to jump in. So that's I'm just verifying what you're saying, Roy.
Thank you very much. Anybody else any comment to make, or do you all find this acceptable?
Acceptable.
So do we have to put this to the vote, or hang on, what we got? Mike, Councillor Brindle's got his hand up.
Yes, sorry about that, Roy. I found it really difficult to get the icons, the icon bar at the bottom of the screen to stay in place. You know, I click on it and bring it up, and it will disappear before I could press the unmute button and then also find the chat drop. So apologies for being so slow, but that's
all right.
That's the reason for it. Semi-technical. Yeah, I just wonder, just a general comment, Roy. In effect, is it fair to say that the solution, the decision was really that we're happy, contented with the status quo? It didn't strike me there was a lot of change going there. That may be a good thing to have reviewed it, but have we just really come up with it's pretty good at the moment, and as you say, it's got to be flexible, and that's it. Is that a fair summary?
I would say that's a very fair summary of where we went to. This is that sort of committee, isn't it? You know, you're running all the time to look after things, and you know, it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that's what we all came up with, and yeah, I would agree.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Canham has a hand up. Could I just answer your question before we go to Councillor Canham? Basically, what we've put is going to be put into another report once we've received everything back from the other committees, and then that'll be presented back to committee then for a decision and recommendation to full council.
Thanks, Tina.
We lost a bit of that.
Sorry, I'm just saying that we don't need a decision as such on it today, because if people are happy with it, this is just what's going to go into the new report. Once we've received all the reports back from the other committees, I'll put another paper together for discussion and agreement by personnel, and then that new report will go to full council.
Thank you. So, any more questions?
My hands up was for I agree.
Yeah.
You told me to vote, so I voted.
Yeah, well done. So, any more comments? No? Right,
Nope.
In that case, we'll move on to 103 training update.
So there's nothing new been added to that this month, except for Councillor Barretto has now, I think, completed her It's All About This from last month. I did put out is some courses from the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce. That's come out. That's got some interesting free webinars that people may want in emails. And like I say, if there's anything people want, please contact me. And I'll get you booked onto whatever you would like to be booked onto.
I must admit, I'll have to ask Councillor James when I see her about the chairing virtual meeting training, whether she found that useful or whether we were sort of up to speed. I've done the chairmanship course, so I know a bit about that, but I must admit, it appears that we're doing very well with virtual meetings. Everybody seems to be able to have their say. Anybody who has chaired them seems to get on very well with the hands up or the chat. But it might be nice just to ask Councillor Jones what she thought of it as she's done it.
Can I comment on that, Roy, please?
Yes, please.
Roy, I thought she chaired a particular meeting very well. I think it was finance. One of the issues, a minor issue, but it comes up sometimes, is if one of the attendees is on the phone, it's much easier if the chair can remember to ask that person specifically if they want to comment, because they can't go on to chat if you're on the phone. So that was just a small example of what she had obviously picked up from that that training that she did.
You can tell when people are on the phones and things, or making noises near the mic, because their picture or their initials flash, and that's because the microphone is picking something up.
Can we have something about that put onto our protocols for virtual meetings? Just as a reminder to all chairmen that if you have attendees that are on the phone, please be aware and make sure that they're brought into all debate.
Yeah, I think it's possibly something that we could add to, you know, what's at the beginning of the meeting. Instead of our health and safety brief, we could have a sort of a how it's going to work brief.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think we'll go with that because, as I say, I don't know about the votes, and we haven't had to vote, but I do know that when we're in full council and various bits, you get this. You know, lady so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, and you all have to make a vote. Well, that's a recorded vote as far as I'm concerned, whereas normally if we were in a full council meeting, you put your hand up. So I don't know quite whether the public sees the hands up, or whether or not we would just have to say there were 9 for and 2 against. That's the only bit I don't know about trying to do it on a virtual meeting, because it is very, very important for me that the public are included and inclusive in this. But equally, I don't want them to go to sleep when you get, we're now going to go to the vote, and it's going to take half an hour because we've got to go through all the people, sometimes twice. So it's just if that can be shown on YouTube or something as voting, it might be worth having a look at. But other than that, I have nothing else to say on this one. Does anybody else have anything on?
Okay, can I just say, I think it might be worth us getting all the chairs together to do some poly training. And if we sort of have an hour where we practice all the different ways to vote, because we kind of hit the ground running with it and are starting to get into our stride, but voting is definitely something we need to improve on. So perhaps we could invite all the chairs to a meeting, and then we can practice with the staff, getting the poly votes up or finding different ways of doing it. Do you think that would be useful?
I personally think that would be a really good idea. I think that would be helpful for all committees, for all of us to get together and sort out what you're going to say prior to the meeting about telephones and bits, so we all have a standard, as we would do if it was health and safety and fire alarms. So yeah, I think perhaps we need to send out something to all chairs and vice chairs if they would like to attend, because they're going to be the ones that take over at various times, and as far as I'm concerned, this is a 2-man team chairing it, and I think both chair and vice chair should be at this sort of training thing and try and get a handle on this, and perhaps we ought to do that sort of as soon as possible. Anybody else comment?
Councillor Hollis and Crawford have got their hands up.
Councillor Hollis.
Thank you. I'm stuck on the expenditure page, so I can't see anything else, for one thing. But two, I personally like the idea of these recorded votes. I think for safeguarding, if you like, personally, I personally agree that we should, or think that we should stick to these named votes. But I'm stuck on the expenditure
I think that's something that we need to sort of have a chat about. I mean, doing it in alphabetical order all the time seems to be a bit of a problem. Normally we would all vote at the same time, and I'd like to see something that brings that along. I don't mind it being a named vote, and it could be read out from the list. But I just thought it was a bit clunky, and that ought to be a little bit easier. But that was just my opinion. But we'll have to have a look at it. We've got Dennis next, and then Mike, and then Chris.
No, you haven't. I put my thing. Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, you took away what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if the vice chairs could be included in this, because we occasionally have to do some work when the chairs aren't there. But you covered that well, and I think it'd be a very good idea for us all to get all the chairs and vice chairs to get together and discuss this matter.
Thank you, Dan. Mike Brindle's next.
Thanks, Roy. Just wanted to add to that. If we're going to invite all chairs and vice chairs, which I entirely agree with, you might just as well invite all councillors, because you never know when a chair or vice chair may change, and it is most of us anyway. Just make it an open invitation. If you want to know more about how the system works and to improve your personal commitment to it, then attend this meeting. How about that?
Yeah, I don't mind. The only downside to that, I would have sort of done that with a second meeting, because if you've just got the chairs and the vice chairs sort of fighting out how we're going to do it, and then coming up with something that they're all happy with, then you'll get a response from all the other councillors saying, well, you made a muck up of that, you ought to have to do it better. I don't know if you're going to have 14 people all trying to say something. It, again, might be a little bit clunky, but I'm up for it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, all meetings are always open to all councillors, so if they want to attend, that's no problem at all. Chris agreed with Jenny. Do you want to say anything, Chris?
No, only the fact I agree with name votes. That way the public can hear who's voted for what.
Yeah, I just say I have no problem with it at all. It's just that it's if there was a way of doing it that was a bit faster, that would be a less clunky. I'd be happy to do it, but I don't mind. Brenda?
I was just going to say, Jane James has done chairing virtual meetings. She might have a way of doing it.
Well,
So
I'll definitely ask her when I see her.
Yeah, because if you're doing training on that, they must do the quickest route, mustn't they?
Yeah, I would think so. I'll write down that I must email Jane and find out a bit more about it. Perhaps she can give us training. That would be nice, wouldn't it? We'll put her in charge of
Training us, yeah.
training. In that case, we'll move on to 104, COVID-19 workplace risk assessment.
So we sent this out obviously with the pack, and thank you very much to Councillor Harvey, who has come back to me about some additional things. His ideas I've put in red. So me and Ros have had a look at them today. I think Ros is still on, and we think that they're good suggestions to be incorporated in. There is a lot on here, so if we do it page by page, perhaps if anybody's got any additional suggestions or comments per page, that may be the easiest way to do it.
Okay, what we'll do is, hey, normal hands up thing. If you like to present it, then we'll ask questions at the end of each page.
So our first page was about the arrival into work and our entry protocol, the use of the toilets, how we prepared the teas and coffees, and our overall waste disposal is on page 1.
All right. I have Dennis with his hand up.
Yeah, just a. Oh, hold it. Am I on?
You are?
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, just a general thing. I like this. It gives us a clear definition of what's going on with everything. But on the numbers, what is the maximum number and the minimum number kind of thing? You know, we got 313 on a lot of them, but on one we have a 6. So what is the highest risk amount?
It would be 9, so it'd be 3 times 3.
Okay, 9. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, it depends actually. This box is 5s, isn't it? So
yeah, they say 5. Yeah.
wait a minute. If I go down to if I skip to the last page, wait a minute. I don't know if I put the last one on, which had I didn't put the. I'll have a look for you because I've actually got. Unless Ros can answer. Ros, what's the? Because I didn't put the grid on.
It says 6s there. A6.
Yeah.
So it could be 5 is really bad. So 5 5s, it's 25.
25.
Worse.
Yeah.
And what's 6?
Low. That's in the green zone.
Yeah.
If you, I've got that paperwork here,
Right.
and the summary of likelihood is if the total score is between 1 and 5, it's low. If the total score is between 6 and 11, it's medium.
Right.
And if it's between 12 and 25, it's high, and you need to do things very quickly. If it's amber, you've got sort of 2 or 3 months. That's the way I understood that, is if you were adding these things together, you need to change things. But we're all of ours, other than we've got 3 or 4 that are in the 6 to 8, so that needs something changing. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
I think what it means also is that we have to put in enhanced additional controls. So if we're in the medium, then you need additional controls in order to manage the risk.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the clarification on that. It does help greatly.
Thank you. Brenda, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm looking for what actions you're taking under first aid. Wouldn't that be in our risk assessment, or are you separating that risk?
Yes, it should be there, Brenda. We need to add that in. Sorry, because you've already raised it and it should have been in there. We did do it verbally with the operations team. We did discuss first aid, but we haven't written it down, so we need to update that.
Okay. So we've got that as an action point, haven't we? That we're going to update this with a first aid section. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions on this page? No? Okay, can we move on?
So this we're looking more at the use of the photocopier, which was a high usage. Also, what we're doing is part of what we were doing is asking, sending the printing down and then telling the people in the office that we were coming to collect it. So there's not a, you know, you don't get a collection of people around the photocopier. So we're finding different ways all the time, but everything is cleaned before and afterwards with the sanitizer wipes. But we've tried to reduce the amount of people going into the office entirely, into the downstairs office. Because that is the best way to reduce the risk, is to reduce the number of people who are doing it. Staff numbers, we looked at the spaces. You can see the staff numbers in the building, how many people we have in the building, and that seems to be working well. We're able to distance the staff. We may have to reconsider it again if we move away from home working being the preferred option of the guidance, because it's about getting everybody back in. But, you know, at the moment, we're content that the system is working. Contractors, yeah, they, you know, they're not just to turn up. With the current contractors that we have an arrangement and an opening up process with them that's been set out. And but to be honest, I think apart from our handyman, we haven't had any other contractors in the building.
I see that Chris came up. I assume this is Chris with the thermometer bit.
Yes.
I take it we have now got some point at you and pull a trigger thermometers or whatever. We're not still putting it underneath their tongue, are we?
No, people swallowing mercury is not the best way forward. I was talking to Chris today, so I need to have a look at the best way of us being able to keep those clean, because you can get now, I believe, disposable things that you could put on them, so you're not constantly cleaning. You know, there's no cross infection. I think you can put little caps on them. So Chris Harvey is going to tell us now.
Am I allowed in for other people before me? I don't mind, really.
No, you're next.
Okay.
Oh, I'm next.
Oh, sorry, Brenda's next.
Yeah, that's why
you were next, boys.
Polite, being a Norfolk boy. How's letting ladies go first?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I have noticed that some of the public houses on the television have just got this thing that they aim at your head, and that takes your temperature.
Right. So there's no actual contact.
No. And the other thing is, there's have we been asked by Bretland to do track and trace? So if
No.
one of our contractors come in and say, you haven't?
No.
Oh, because our contractor should be contacting us if one of the persons have been into our building and well, we've been asked at Keystone to do it. We have to write down everybody that enters the building now.
No, I haven't received anything.
Oh, okay. But yeah, there is a thermometer because I see it on the telly. They aim it at the heads in the pubs and they take a
Okay.
temperature.
Roz, can we note that down to have a look and see if we can do a point and click
Already
thermometer?
Googling. I'm Googling as you speak.
All right.
In fact, Ros, I've just Googled, they start at sort of 20 quid or 17 quid. There's an £11 one, which is a sort of forehead thing. And it goes up to sort of 30 or 40 quid, so they're not mega, so we ought to have a little look at that, I think.
Okay, yeah, because
Chris will tell us which is the better one to go for.
Yeah, and that will stop us having to clean them in between people. That's a lot of better idea.
Okay. Yeah, we got ours from Boots for $49.99 it was on Boots online, and this is for the shop. And what she does, it doesn't touch the forehead. It's a good inch and 2 inches away. You just scan it. It comes up. It tells you 36 point something or whatever. And if it's 37, 38, then you don't let them in. But it's dead simple to do. It's not intrusive on anyone whatsoever. And we should have 2 or 3, I would have thought. One at the Works Depot, Carnegie, and various other places. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, there are other chemists available that we can buy thermometers from.
Yes, of course there are, yeah.
So can we have that as another action point, that we will look at getting infrared thermometers so that we can look, do the job without having to clean and everything else. All right.
Councillor Hollis has a hand up.
Councillor Hollis.
Thank you. I was going to say, you could always have a chat with Magna in Precious Bear, because she does thermometers, and I'm sure another company in the town market has got the thermometers that Chris was talking about. The ones you aim is Weatherspoons.
Yeah, as I say, I think it's something that we need to look at. It's a far better idea, and the nice part about it is it's very visual, and people can see it being done, and people soon get to expect it to be done, and then they start looking at you if you haven't, and that's what this is going to be where the new norm is. You want to feel safe, so you want to see people doing the things that you expect. So I think in all our venues, anywhere like that people are going into, we need to have one of these and do the job. Anything else on that page?
No, well done. Just add the first aid, please.
Yeah.
There's still more. There's no escaping.
Oh.
There's still more. So I've got another couple of pages, I think. On the cemetery depot, because that's a separate use, we are splitting the people up as to their welfare areas. These areas are cleaned daily. They're not allowed to share their vehicles, and vehicle common touch areas are cleaned down. Chris was talking about sanitising the vehicles in case that the people who normally drive them aren't available for whatever reason, and that's something that we probably need to add, that if they go away or leave or are sick, that there's an extra sanitation of the vehicles to be done so that somebody else can use.
Do we have wipes and that in all the vehicles? Because I know when I use mine this last few weeks, when I've been trying to go out and do things, what I do now is I take a hand wipe. When I come back to the van, I open the door, reach for my hand wipe all handles, wipe my hands again, wipe the steering wheel, wipe the key, and then away I go. And that's obviously, if you're the only one in it, you don't have to do it every time, but I'm meeting people, different people all the time, so I tend to do it each time, but because I'm in contact with people. But as long as there's some sanitizers in there, then it makes it something that they can do very quickly on door handles and the things where people would touch. Just an idea. Chris, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, to come back to the wipes, I had a discussion with Sam about Serco workers didn't have hand sanitizer gel, they only had wipes, which really is not good enough. If you're going to do the van, you need hand sanitizer gel as well. Just the wipes aren't really sufficient, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm talking about actually having a wipe so you can do the handle. You know, I mean, yes, I had the gel for my hands,
Yeah,
but I also didn't know whether other people were going to be touching the door handle. That was what the wipe was for. Brenda?
Yeah, just to be aware, a lot of the hand gels are alcoholic based. I mean, my one's 90% alcohol. That's why I don't use it. Ruins my hands. But having them in your vehicle, they must not be stored in direct sunlight because they can actually cause a fire in your car. I just think it need to be the workers in vehicles need to be aware of that. If they're going to have that sort of stuff in there, you know, don't keep them in the sunlight.
Worried me there for a minute. I thought you was going to say they mustn't drink it.
They mustn't do that.
But yeah, I'm sure we have the protocol there for how these things are used and how they're stored. If we haven't, then that would be another action point, that we have something in each van, some sort of signage that says, you know, whatever is necessary. Do we have that already or not?
Can I just come back on the thermometers, because I've just been messaged to confirm that the one that we have in the downstairs reception office is a point and click. So that one works, but we will need to buy similar ones for the other two sites.
Lovely.
Yeah. Roz, I don't know if you want to talk about the vehicles.
Yes, if Chris is right, you should have wipes and sanitizer, because your wipes are about cleaning your hands if you don't have access to water, and sanitizer is what you put over. We've tried to get them to be environmentally friendly, so we're kind of using we've ordered a lot of blue tape as well, blue paper, so which can be double wrapped. Yeah, so they have wipes and sanitizer. We are reminding them weekly that they need to do this and use it, and bikes as well, because we've got Chris and his bike. So yeah, I think it is a cultural thing, because people still don't feel in danger, you know what I mean, and actually having to remind people constantly, I think, is the way to go. And we have the weekly discussion at ops meeting, and then Tina and I are in sort of regularly. We're like the weather people, the gentlemen and the women coming in and out. So when Tina's in, I'm not in. So and we have to then remind people about what was agreed at the operations meeting, because so much of it is counter to how people normally behave. So it's going to take a while, I think, for people to adapt the new practices.
But we have this under control. The senior management are making sure that it is mentioned at regular intervals.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's quite good that we rotate in the building, because obviously each time we go in, we say things to people. So they've got me, David, Alan and Roz telling them on a regular basis to be doing the same thing. So it's coming from 4 people. And then we have the weekly ops meeting as well when we go through it.
Lovely. Any more questions on this slide?
Yeah, I've got one more comment, if I could, please.
Yes, certainly.
We have lots of checklists for people who do bits and pieces. I meant to put this on here. Are we going to have checklists for whoever checks the bands? I know it's a bit picky and a bit, you know, you might think over the top, but if someone signs to say they've cleaned the band, then fair enough. You know, it's always best to have more records than less.
Yeah.
So you mean like the daily inspections that they normally do?
Yeah.
That add the COVID stuff to it?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you do this. You do it like a lot of operators now. They do what they call a toolbox check. So that you just add that onto their toolbox check. that you've done this, done that, done the other, you know, because they've got to think that's the that's the van, but actually it's gone off because his wife's been ill, and somebody else goes to the van. He might have cleaned the van, but he's forgot he hasn't cleaned the tools, you know. So it's you know, a tick list, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Take that as an action point, yeah?
Yep, certainly.
Okay. Any more on this particular slide?
No, great job.
Okay, so now we've got the next one.
So this is more about contact with people who may have been exposed. We've since about week 3, we've had a booking reference to get the staff tested. So to date, we've only had to get one person tested, which was negative. So that's good. So our employees are able to book a test whenever or if ever they feel that they need to be tested, which they were very comforted by the thought that that would be available, because at one time it was quite difficult for the testing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's all in place, and that's still is still maintained. Same with the packages, opening of post. We've moved the pigeonholes for collection, the touching of papers that we arranged. Like I arranged to have things left on my desk in my office, and so that we can give it a couple of days clearance before we actually go and do the paperwork myself, and then with it going back. So we've got those regimes in place. It's only normally one person who does the mail and the parcels. The disposal of waste is we are going through double bagging them, and if they are people who have been contaminated, then it would go into the red waste bin and be marked for storage until the result is available for that person. Fortunately, we haven't had to test any of those processes yet.
Let's hope that we don't have to.
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else? Any questions on that one?
No.
In that case, we'll move on, please.
So this is, I think we're on to the getting close to the last one. Yeah. Oh, this is the last one. So this is about the contracting and spreading of infection, and just good habits by people, you know, that they're putting out on all of the posters and Facebook and everything else. We do have hand sanitizer in every office. We do have a hand sanitizer upstairs and downstairs. When we have people like the NHS in, we do a deep clean before they arrive. The day before, we do a deep clean after they leave. But also, because it's the NHS, they are in charge of the infection control when they are using the building. So we've been very stringent on that, particularly for those people who are coming in. And they've been coming in the whole way through. So when our cleaners come in, they have a round of all the frequently touched surfaces for the enhanced cleaning.
Well, she beat you again, Chris, so we'll have Brenda first and then you.
Oh, Brenda? Sorry, Chris, yeah. It's just staff working at home. I'm not saying I want you to monitor them, but I don't want them working all day and all night. Is there some way that you can monitor how often that they're on their laptops? Because I think sometimes you lot are keyboarding away in the night, and you shouldn't be. You should finish your work and that's it, switch off.
I couldn't possibly comment, Councillor Cannon.
Well, you can, because you know that it's true, but that's not what we should be doing, as allowing you to do that. You're working past your hours.
I shall take it upon myself to discuss it with the home workers and to make us be better at monitoring each other's screen
Because
time.
there's also the screen timing as well, you see, because you shouldn't be sitting at a screen all day and all night. For a start, bad for your eyes. Yeah.
Your comments are noted, Councillor Canham.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Chris.
Sorry?
You wanted some questions on the first aid process?
Yes, please, yeah. The first aider, if something happens, someone collapses, does he have to put a mask on? Does he have to put gloves on? Or would they have to put disposable protective wear on to go and treat whatever's happened? How are we going to work this?
So in the first aid kit, we already have gloves and we also have a one-way vent for if you have to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Basically, we're talking it through with staff. We've obviously talked about, you know, taking the normal precautions that you would have to prevent from COVID. So we've talked about all of that with the staff. However, if there's a situation where it's life and death and people feel that taking those precautions may impact on the casualty, then we would allow them to then move into that space without necessarily taking those precautions.
Okay, and we would still be covered.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's not. I was just wondering. I'd hate to think that something had happened, but we couldn't go and treat someone because we didn't have the right stuff available at the time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Ros, if you allow me, Mr. Chair, I think it's similar to somebody that's got AIDS or HIV.
Yeah, it is.
You wouldn't stop treating them because they've already told you. Like as a first aider at work, we got told who had what. And I would say, I have to do it this way because of, you know, and generally people understand. But as long as you've got a good supply of them one-way mouthpieces, that should be all right.
Lovely. The nice thing is that we've actually looked at the problem and we've actually taken action. You know, thankfully, I'm not saying, oh, that's an action point. We haven't got a mask, we haven't got this, we haven't got that. We've done what we should have done, and everything is in place, which is great when you get the answers that, you know, relieve some of the stress and worry that people will have. Any more on the work risk assessment?
No, good job.
We'll move on. 10520. Committee objectives to explore new ways of the council and staff working together to improve project and committee collaboration. I'm sure there's lots of people going to have.
Where have you gone?
Various bits to say about this. Where do you want to start? Nobody?
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button.
Well, I'll come in if you like. Councillor.
Yeah, fine.
I think as each committee starts to go through, then the collaboration's there because I personally will always work with staff on a project, no matter what it is, you know. But I don't to explore new ways. I'm not sure you explore new ways because it's when and where it happens, isn't it? Unless I've got the wrong handle, you know. But that's the way I look at it. If something needs doing, you set up the group and off they go and they go and do their work. You know, cemeteries, allotments, out. You know, they do the task, but you work with staff on that task. A VE day, you know, anything like that, we just work together.
Yeah, that's the way that I see it as well. Tina has her hand up.
Sorry, thinking about this, I think that sometimes it's a long time between committee meetings, and although we encourage all the councillors to speak to us. It's often only really the chairs and vices that we have regular contact with. And therefore, now that we have this modern technology, is it worth us having an informal catch up at some time during the month so that the people who aren't the chairs and the vices, you know, can be part of the ongoing discussions? You know, I think it's about being more inclusive so that everybody on the committee has actually, you know, more of a chance to be involved in the work that's happening between committees.
I must admit, from my side, I think this is something that I hope we're going to take away from this terrible disaster. For us in particularly town council level, you get stuck in this thing where it's, you know, when somebody first says to you, do you want to be a councillor, they tell you that it's one meeting a month and you don't have to do anything. You suddenly find out that it's various committee meetings, and it does take up some of your time. But with this new technology, I think this is something that we should be looking at, that all members have got almost instant access. I mean, this particular team system with the chat box and the fact that papers can be put on there so much earlier. Yes, we have to obey the rules and regulations as far as the public are concerned, because they need to know that it will be published X days in advance. They will be able to see it. They can come along if it interests them. But we ought to be able now to have an area where the members can put in what they see as something that's happening. And we can do, I hope we can do away a bit with all of this, you know, oh, you have to have a minute secretary, you have to take minutes, you have to do this, you can't do that. I think perhaps there should be a way of letting all the members know that there's an informal chat about whatever somebody has come up with. And you know, all you've got to do is look at the chat on Teams. And if it's something that interests you, you can be part of, and we can all work together and be very, very much more collaborative with what we do. I think this is one of the great things that will come out of this technical working, or this virtual working. That's the feeling that I have. I see that Mike's got his hand up.
So, sorry, Roy, was that me? Apologies for being slow. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that the technology gives us new opportunity, new ways of doing it, but the principle of doing it is well established. So, for example, on the planning committee, Mark sends out planning applications whenever they arrive, and all members of the committee, that's done by email at the moment, and all members of the committee are encouraged, which is all councillors, are encouraged to respond with their opinions. And we try and form an opinion as the week goes by and as the month goes by, so that when we get to the formal meeting, people have already seen the information and have a good opportunity to discuss it and to think about it. I think that's worked pretty well recently, and it means that all of us are coming better informed to meetings. What you're saying, and I entirely agree, is that the newest technology may enable us to do that more subtly than just by using email, but the principle is well established and it works.
Yeah, I agree entirely. The lovely thing about planning, you know, part of the thing that I do at other levels, is that, you know, that is a set document that people are supposed to read, you know, and have an opinion. It's why you're there. I tend to think that what happens with members is you sort of get into your little silos, you know. Some members will do ALP and some will do VEM and various other things. And I just feel that if you've got something that the councillors are putting together and saying, hey, I think this is an important way to go forward, we can just bring meetings forward, you know, get together and have informal discussion with other members and officers to make sure that we develop the town council better. But it's not like planning, you know, it's not going to be Mr. So-and-so is going to say, can I build a house on the corner of Edgate? And we can all say, oh, no, you're not. But you know, because that is formal. I'm looking to use this as something that is far more informal for us members. You know, we can get together so much easier today. You know, to try and organise this meeting where we all had to meet, you know, you get a lot more absenteeism. But with this, I think you can have it at different times, and you know, you can just be more inclusive with all of the members. So just a way that I think perhaps we ought to be able to look to work. I see Tina's got her hand up, and then Brenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I think one of the other advantages is, like I was talking to Councillor Harvey earlier about risk assessment, and it gives us the opportunity to update the documents in real time. So although we had discussion this morning, I can update a document, and then makes it easier for other councillors to read it and discuss it. Because sometimes if you get proposals or comments at the meeting, it's harder for the other councillors to look at it and cogitate on it, because it's just being delivered to them verbally as opposed to it being written in part of a report. So we've, you know, Councillor Harvey's comments to me this morning added value, although in meeting obviously there's other things have added value as well. It's good to be able to actually physically present them. So I think that's good, and the fact that, you know, we had them prior to the meeting, it gave Ros and I time to have another reflection on it as well. So I think because we can communicate and make amendments much more quickly, then that's can only be a good thing. And I think that makes it easier for people, particularly if we were doing a policy or something, for people to send the change in, so you could have it in red as an amendment within the policy, and it allows people to look at the amendment in context. So yeah, I don't know how councillors feel about that. I mean, obviously we don't want to do away with things coming up in meetings, because I know that, you know, that's a necessity. But actually, I think if there's things that we can do that are positive leading up to the meeting, then we're presenting better information for the councillors to make decisions on. Yeah,
I must admit, you know, being a county and district councillor, one of the things that we do at that level at meetings is you have written questions by such and such a date. And I wonder, perhaps with our committees, we could look at a similar thing. Draft agenda goes out particular day. It has to be obviously ratified by the chairman of each committee. All the members see it. If they had concern, officers would have time to get a decent answer, make sure that it's been researched and looked at. And then that way, when the public see the question, they will also see a proper answer. I don't know, it might be something that we could look at doing, because basically with this technology, we get the draft agendas out earlier, and everybody can see them and come back at it before. I mean, obviously, if one of the questions that they came up with couldn't be done in the time scale, you would then put that forward to the next meeting, and it would be an agenda item. But most of these things, I think, would be, you know, answered properly there and then. So it might be a a way. I'd like to try and set up with this committee a little working group together to try and come up with a way of making it happen here, so we can see what happens. We're a nice small committee. We can bang some ideas together and just see if we can put forward something that works. If we do it and people see that it's beneficial, perhaps they'll move on and put it into their committees. If it's not beneficial, we'll do it for a little while and then scrap it. I don't know how other people feel. Brenda's got a hand up.
Yeah, I did have my hand up. What I was looking at St. Peter's. When we've done St. Peter's and the people come in and done the presentation, that sort of thing's fantastic, because then you're questioning each other. You're not doing it publicly, so you could actually feel that you could say what you wanted, when you wanted, and other people come in. And you've also got, where a councillor's not on that committee but they want to have a say, that means that they have to attend that meeting, where actually they could have had their say beforehand. I'll give Stuart, for example. Stuart's very good, but he will come to help now and again when he's got something in his head, where if he'd had a little pre-meeting, he could have actually added that, and that could have been put onto the agenda or put into a document. So I think it's a good idea. And also, you're not missing anybody out, because it's up to you if you want to go on, join up a little team meeting with other councillors on a subject. It's entirely up to you. So I think that's the way forward.
I must admit, Brenda, I agree with you. I don't know if we keep saying, you have a meeting. Yes, you do. I mean, currently you sort of email between each other. With this thing, you can actually do live documents. I think one of the things that I would like to possibly put forward is that when we first started with this and there was training, we looked upon it as training how to have a meeting. And I think the trainers did really well, and people got the chat box sorted, how you do. This does so much more. Tina and I, in our pre-meeting this morning, went through things that I didn't realise that you could do. And it could be so inclusive to all the members. I think perhaps another bigger training session on how this works might be sort of helpful. Mike's got his hand up. I think, Tina, I don't know whether yours is still up or whether you didn't put it down, but we've got Mike.
Thanks, Roy. Just wanted to encourage you to try this with the personnel committee, and then maybe after a couple of months pass on your findings, as it were, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what's worked exceptionally well, what training's needed, and so on, to other committees or to the council in general. I think you're thinking as you're going along here, which is great. Other committees may have a slightly different view of doing things, and they can probably get together and pass on their motivation and the way they work. Just get it going on one committee, see how that works, and spread the news around.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah, that's the way that I see it as well. I mean, it's what we're here for, isn't it? And this committee does work well together, and I'm pleased with the way that we all interact and have. I mean, Chris with his specialities with the health and safety and thing. I mean, I know for myself, some of the things that he comes up with, I think, why didn't I think of that? But it's not my field, and I was a.
Oh, we might have lost
slightly
him.
more than a one-man band. Ended up more than about health and safety. Wasn't really anything that you worried about. So I learned something from Chris at most meetings, and the way that he put that stuff in today. I mean, I'd read that report, and then suddenly when it came up with the bits in red, I thought, yeah, if you don't ask, you just don't see it, and I really didn't know. So it's something that I think we could do as a way forward, as part of our committee objectives. If everybody's happy with that, is there anything else I want to mention? If not, we'll move on.
That's fine. You keep going, Mr. Chairman. I don't know where you're going, but you keep disappearing. Your voice keeps disappearing.
Oh, I'll get closer to the microphone. Sorry. It's because I move about a lot. Right, 106.20, exclusion of press and public, which means we turn the recording off. But to be honest, we don't have anything below the line to discuss today. So we might just as well say goodbye to the public and call that the end of the meeting.
Wait a minute, you forgot 107.